Peter Morgan stood at the large window of Europa Base's observation deck, watching Jupiter's massive form fill half the sky. The gas giant's swirling storms cast a faint orange glow across the icy surface of the moon. After 5 years stationed on Europa, the view still took his breath away. His tablet beeped with an urgent message. Peter's heart skipped a beat as he read it. Unknown objects approaching solar system. Multiple signatures, larger than anything we've ever built. In the next hour, every screen in the base lit up with the news. Humanity wasn't alone anymore. The objects were ships, massive ones, and they were slowing down as they approached Neptune's orbit. Pete, Amanda Morgan's voice echoed through the corridor as she ran toward him. His wife's face was flushed with excitement. As the base's leading xenoanthropologist, this was the moment she had spent her career preparing for. "They're real, Amanda," he said, pulling her into a hug. "We're about to meet aliens. And guess who they want to talk to?" Amanda's eyes sparkled. "Earth just appointed you as humanity's diplomatic representative. Your background in both colonial administration and international relations made you their top choice." Peter's mouth went dry. "Me? But I'm just a diplomatic officer for Europa Base." "Not anymore," Amanda smiled. "Pack your bags. We're headed to Geneva." 3 days later, Peter stood in the United Earth Government's central chamber in Geneva. The room buzzed with nervous energy as officials from every nation and colony gathered to witness humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. The alien ship that entered Earth's orbit was enormous, 15 kilometers long and shaped like a massive arrowhead. Smaller vessels escorted it, each one larger than Earth's biggest ships. When the alien delegation appeared in the chamber through what looked like a door made of light, Peter's diplomatic training kicked in. He stepped forward, back straight, expression neutral but friendly. The aliens were tall and elegant, with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Their leader, who introduced himself as High Speaker Zixtal, stood nearly 8 feet tall. "We welcome you to Earth," Peter said clearly, having practiced the formal greeting countless times. Zixtal's triangular head tilted slightly. When he spoke, his words were translated by a device at his throat. "We are the Galactic Concordat, an alliance of 15 advanced species. We have come to offer Earth protection and guidance." Peter noticed Amanda, standing off to the side with other experts, taking rapid notes on her tablet. Her forehead was creased in concentration. "We are honored by your offer," Peter replied carefully. "Earth looks forward to peaceful dialogue and cultural exchange." Zixtal's skin rippled with blue patterns. "You misunderstand. We are not here to ask. The Concordat rules this sector of space. All developing species must submit to our authority. This is not a negotiation." A murmur of shock ran through the chamber. Peter kept his voice steady. "I'm afraid that's not how we do things here. Earth is an independent world, as are our colonies. We're happy to discuss friendship, trade, and cultural exchange as equals." The alien's skin turned a deep purple. "Interesting. You are the first species in 12,000 years to resist. Every other race understood the benefits of submission to our wisdom." Amanda caught Peter's eye from across the room. She made a subtle gesture they had developed over years of marriage, her warning signal. Something was very wrong. "Perhaps we could discuss specific benefits and concerns," Peter suggested, buying time. Over the next hour, Zixtal outlined the Concordat's offer: advanced technology, medical breakthroughs, and protection from hostile forces in exchange for Earth accepting their complete authority. Every human decision would need Concordat approval. Earth's military would be disbanded. Resources would be shared as the Concordat saw fit. During a brief recess, Amanda pulled Peter aside. "Pete, their body language, speech patterns, and diplomatic approach. They're all textbook intimidation tactics. They're used to species that evolved from herd or pack animals who naturally submit to dominant forces. But humans, we evolved as persistence hunters and cooperative tool users," Peter finished. "We don't have the same instincts." Amanda nodded. Exactly. And look at how they describe the other species. Willing submission, natural order, grateful acceptance of guidance. These aren't allies. They're masters with well-trained servants. Peter's tablet lit up with messages from colonial leaders. The Mars colonies were unanimously against submission. Europa Base declared its full support for independence. The lunar colonies were already moving their defense platforms into position, just in case. When the session resumed, Peter stood taller. High Speaker, we have considered your offer. Earth and her colonies must decline. We are willing to join the galactic community as equals, but we will not kneel. The chamber went silent. Zixtal's skin turned almost black. You do not understand your position. No species has ever refused the Concordat. The consequences would be severe. Then we will be the first, Peter said firmly. Humanity has never responded well to threats. High Speaker, I suggest you review our history before making any hasty decisions. The alien's translator crackled as he switched to a different communication frequency, one he likely thought humans couldn't detect. But Amanda's team had been monitoring all frequencies. Her tablet displayed the translation. Command, we have an anomaly. This species shows no sign of proper submission response. Requesting guidance. The response came quickly. Understood. Implement standard extinction protocol. But before Zixtal could speak again, Peter smiled. And yes, High Speaker, we did decode that transmission. Consider carefully what it means that we could do that without your knowledge. Humanity stands ready to be either a valuable friend or a determined enemy. The choice is yours. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the alien's features. You have 30 cycles of your planet to reconsider. After that, there will be consequences. The delegation vanished through their light door as suddenly as they had arrived. Later that night, in their assigned quarters in Geneva, Amanda found Peter staring out the window at the distant shape of the alien ship in orbit. Did I just start an interstellar war? He asked quietly. Amanda wrapped her arms around him from behind. No, you just became the first person in 12,000 years to stand up to a bully. They're not going to just accept our answer and leave, are they? Not a chance, Amanda said. But that's what they don't understand about humans. We're at our best when things look impossible. Peter turned to face her. How many species do you think they've enslaved? How many civilizations have they bullied into submission? Too many, Amanda replied. But maybe that's why we're here. Maybe humanity's greatest purpose isn't just to reach the stars, but to help others stand up again. Above them, the alien ship loomed in the night sky, a reminder that humanity's greatest challenge was just beginning. But as Peter looked at his wife's determined face, he felt something else growing alongside his concern. Hope. For the first time, in 12,000 years, someone had said no to the Concordat. And if humanity's history proved anything, it was that a single act of defiance could change everything. The next 30 days would determine not just humanity's fate, but perhaps the future of every species under the Concordat's control. It was time to show the galaxy why humans had survived every challenge their harsh world had thrown at them. It was time to show them why humans never kneel. Commander Susan Wright couldn't sleep. Standing in the control room of Earth's largest defense station, she watched the tactical display showing 5 massive Concordat ships now orbiting Earth. 20 days had passed since their ultimatum, and humanity had 10 days left to submit. Still up? A voice called from behind her. Susan turned to see Peter Morgan entering the control room, looking as tired as she felt. Someone has to keep watch, she said, gesturing at the display. They've been testing our sensor grid all week, trying to map our blind spots. Peter nodded, his diplomatic uniform wrinkled from another long day of meetings. Any word from the Mars colonies? Better than word, Susan smiled. They've finished upgrading their defense grid. The Concordat ships that tried to scan their bases yesterday couldn't penetrate the new shields. For the first time in Earth's history, all human colonies had united under a single banner. The threat of alien domination had done what centuries of politics couldn't. It had truly unified humanity. In her lab on Europa Base, Amanda Morgan reviewed the latest data from her team's observation of Concordat communications. She had noticed something fascinating. The alien ships were broadcasting on frequencies that seemed designed for different species to hear. "Look at this," she said to her assistant. "When they think we're listening, they broadcast threats. But these lower frequencies carry different messages to their client species. They're afraid." She pulled up a decoded transmission. The humans continue to resist standard compliance protocols. Their psychological profile shows concerning deviations from established patterns. Request guidance on alternative approaches. Amanda smiled. The mighty Concordat, rulers of 15 species, didn't know what to do with humans who simply said no. Peter's day started with an unexpected message. A representative from one of the Concordat's client species, a race called the Nexeri, wanted to meet in secret. The location: a small coffee shop in Old Geneva. The Nexeri representative looked nothing like the tall, imposing members of the Concordat. She was small, with fur like polished copper and large, expressive eyes. She introduced herself as Rix. "What I tell you could mean death for my people," Rix said quietly, her translator barely above a whisper. "But we've watched Earth these past weeks. You've done what we never dared." "The Concordat told us all species submitted willingly," Peter said. Rick's fur rippled with what might have been a sad laugh. "They say many things. They came to my world 300 years ago. They said they would protect us from great dangers. They showed us terrible visions of threats that never came. Eventually, our leaders agreed to their demands. By the time we realized the truth, it was too late." Peter leaned forward. "How many other species share your feelings?" "More than the Concordat knows," Rick said. "We watch Earth. When you stand for all of us." Back at the defense station, Susan received urgent news from the lunar bases. The Concordat ships were moving. "All stations, battle positions," she ordered, her voice calm despite her racing heart. "This isn't a drill." 3 Concordat vessels approached the moon, their weapons still cold. A transmission came through. "We will establish a temporary base on your satellite. This is not a request." Susan pressed the broadcast button. "Concordat vessels, you are entering restricted space. Reverse course immediately." The aliens ignored the warning. Susan took a deep breath and pressed another button. Hidden ports on the lunar surface opened, revealing defense platforms that humanity had spent the last 20 days building in secret. "Final warning," she broadcast. "Reverse course, or we will fire." The Concordat ships kept coming. They had never faced real resistance before. They didn't expect it now. Susan gave the order. Lunar defense platforms fired in perfect sequence. The blasts weren't meant to destroy, just to show they could hit their targets. Every shot struck exactly where intended, leaving scorch marks on the Concordat ships' hulls. The alien vessels froze, then slowly backed away. Amanda's research team made another breakthrough that evening. They had been studying records of other species' first contact with the Concordat, looking for patterns. Every species they conquered evolved from herd or pack animals, she explained to the emergency council. Beings with strong instincts to submit to alpha figures. But humans evolved differently. We're tool users, cooperative hunters. We band together against threats, not submit to them. "How does this help us?" someone asked. "Because it means their entire strategy is based on assumptions that don't apply to us," Amanda said. "They literally don't know how to handle beings who refuse to kneel." The next few days brought surprising developments. 3 more client species made secret contact with Earth. Each told similar stories, of manipulation, of carefully crafted threats, of gradual loss of independence. But they also brought something else: information, technical data, defense codes, patrol routes. The Concordat slave species were quietly rebelling in their own way. Peter found himself working 20-hour days, coordinating with these hidden allies, while maintaining humanity's official stance of defiance. The bags under his eyes grew darker, but so did his determination. 7 days before the deadline, the Concordat made its first real mistake. They attempted to land troops on Mars without permission, probably expecting the colonies to surrender at the first show of force. They didn't expect the colonists to fight back. They didn't expect the new shield technology developed by combining human innovation with secret data from their client species, and they certainly didn't expect to lose 2 transport ships in the first 5 minutes. The Concordat ships retreated, but the message was clear. Humanity wasn't just refusing to submit. They were capable of fighting back. On the final night before the deadline, Peter and Amanda stood in their Geneva apartment, watching the Concordat ships glowing in the night sky. "Tomorrow they'll expect our surrender," Peter said. Amanda took his hand. "Then tomorrow we'll disappoint them again." "The other species are watching," Peter said quietly. "Rick's told me they'd never seen anything like this. We're showing them something they'd forgotten was possible." "The right to say no," Amanda nodded. "The power to stand up." A signal lit up Peter's tablet. A message from Commander Wright. The Concordat fleet was receiving reinforcements. Tomorrow wouldn't be just about words anymore. But as Peter looked at his wife's determined face, at the distant moon where humanity's defenders waited, at the strands of hope they'd woven with other enslaved species, he felt something stronger than fear. The Concordat thought they were coming to break humanity's will. Instead, they might just have awakened something that would change the galaxy forever. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. The first shot of the war wasn't fired at Earth. It happened on Mars, where Captain Ryan Ellis watched a Concordat ship descend toward Mining Colony 6 without permission. "Last warning," Ryan broadcast from the colony's defense center. "Turn back, or we will consider this an act of war." The alien ship kept coming. Ryan looked at his weapons officer and nodded. "Show them we mean it." A single defense laser fired, slicing through the Concordat ship's outer hull. The vessel jerked to a stop, then turned and fled back to space. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. In Geneva, Peter Morgan was working with Earth's military leaders when the news arrived. The Concordat had announced that humanity's time for consideration was over. Their message was simple: submit or face extinction. Earth's response was even simpler: no. Admiral Linda Hayes, commander of Earth's United Space Fleet, stood before the Emergency Council. "The Concordat has started moving ships into attack positions. We expect them to strike within hours." "How many ships?" someone asked. 35 capital ships, Linda said. "About twice what we expected." Peter noticed she was smiling slightly. "You look awfully happy about being outnumbered, Admiral." "Because they still don't understand us," Linda said. "They think numbers win wars. But humans, we've been winning against bad odds since we learned to throw rocks at bigger animals." On Europa base, Amanda Morgan made a discovery that changed everything. She had been studying Concordat communication patterns when she noticed something strange. "Look at this," she told her team, pointing to a data stream. "Their ships move in perfect formation. Every turn, every attack pattern, it's all programmed. They don't adapt. They don't improvise." She sent her findings to the military command. Humans had something the Concordat didn't: creativity, the ability to think on their feet, to change plans mid-battle. It wasn't much, but against an enemy this powerful, every advantage counted. The Concordat struck at dawn, Geneva time. Their ships appeared above every major city on Earth, above every colony on Mars, above the lunar bases. They expected surrender at this show of force. Instead, humanity showed them something new. The defense platforms that humans had built weren't just weapons. They were decoys. When the Concordat ships opened fire, their shots passed right through holographic projections. The real Earth fleet, hidden behind the moon, struck from behind. Admiral Hayes had studied old human naval battles, particularly those where smaller forces defeated larger ones. She used everything humanity had learned in thousands of years of warfare. The Concordat ships were bigger, more powerful, and more advanced. But they fought like machines, following preset patterns. The human ships fought like humans, unpredictably, creatively, dirty. On Mars, Ryan Ellis watched the massive ships descending toward his colony again. This time, they weren't alone. But neither was he. All miners, battle stations, he ordered. The Concordat hadn't bothered learning much about human mining technology. They didn't know that every drilling laser could be turned into a weapon. They didn't expect the mining tunnels to be filled with armed colonists. When their troops landed, expecting an easy victory, they found themselves in a maze of tunnels where every corner held a surprise. Ryan's voice echoed through the colony speakers. "Welcome to Mars, you arrogant aliens. Let's see how you like fighting in our dust." Peter received an urgent message from Rix, his Nexuri contact. Other species were watching the battle through secret channels. For the first time in 12,000 years, someone was fighting back against the Concordat and holding their own. "My people are inspired," Rix's message said. "We're not alone anymore. You've shown us what's possible." But victory came with a price. The Concordat's weapons were devastating when they hit their targets. 3 Earth cities had taken heavy damage. The lunar base was destroyed. The Mars colonies were under constant attack. Yet humanity didn't break. With each attack, the resistance grew stronger. With each demand for surrender, the answer came back louder. No. Amanda's research team made another breakthrough. They found a pattern in the Concordat's attack strategies, a weakness in their perfect formations. "They're so focused on efficiency," she explained to the military command, "that they've forgotten about inspiration. Their soldiers follow orders perfectly, but they don't believe in what they're fighting for." She showed them intercepted communications from Concordat ships. The aliens were confused, frustrated. They'd never faced an enemy that grew stronger with each defeat. "They don't understand that pushing us harder just makes us push back harder," Amanda said. "It's what humans have always done." The turning point came when the Concordat tried to seize Europa base. They thought the small moon base would be an easy target. They were wrong. Commander Wright had turned the base's ice-melting equipment into a weapon. When the Concordat ships approached, she waited until they were in position. Then she gave the order. Massive jets of superheated water vapor shot from the surface of Europa, flash freezing in space. The Concordat ships, their hulls covered in ice, struggled to maintain their perfect formation. They'd never trained for this kind of attack because no one had ever tried it before. That was when Admiral Hayes sprung her trap. The Earth fleet, hidden in Europa's magnetic field, struck from multiple directions. The Concordat formation broke for the first time. In Geneva, Peter watched the battle reports with a mixture of hope and worry. Humanity was fighting well, better than anyone expected. But the Concordat was vast, with resources from 15 enslaved worlds. This was just their first wave. "They'll send more ships," he told Amanda that night. "Bigger ones. More advanced weapons." "Of course they will," Amanda said. "But we'll have something new waiting for them. It's what humans do. We adapt, we improvise, we overcome. And we're not fighting alone anymore," Peter added, thinking of Rix and the other secret allies they'd made. "Every species watching this is learning the same lesson. The Concordat isn't invincible." Above them, the night sky flickered with distant battles. Humanity's first interstellar war wasn't just about survival anymore. It had become something bigger, a symbol of hope for every species that had ever been forced to kneel. The Concordat had ruled through fear for 12,000 years. But they were about to learn what happened when you pushed humans too far. They were about to learn why Earth's creatures evolved to stand upright, to look at the stars, and to dream of reaching them. They were about to learn why humans never kneel. A month into the war, Earth's United Command Center in Geneva hummed with activity. Peter Morgan studied the latest reports from across the solar system. The Concordat had learned that humans wouldn't surrender easily, so they changed their strategy. Now they tried to cut Earth off from its colonies. They're setting up blockades, Admiral Linda Hayes explained, pointing to the tactical display. Red dots showed Concordat ships forming lines between Earth and Mars. They think they can starve us into submission. They don't know much about human history, do they? Peter smiled. Blockades just make us more creative. He was right. When the Concordat blocked normal space routes, human ships went where the aliens wouldn't follow, skimming close to the sun, using gravity assists to slingshot past their lines, hiding in asteroid fields that the larger alien ships couldn't navigate. On Mars, Captain Ryan Ellis watched as miners turned soldiers prepare for another battle. The Red Planet's colonies had become a symbol of human resistance. Every time the Concordat attacked, the colonists fought back harder. They're coming again, his sensor officer reported. 5 ships this time. Ryan nodded. Let's show them our new trick. When the Concordat ships descended toward the colony, they expected the usual resistance. Mining lasers, tunnel fighting, ambushes. Instead, they found the colony apparently empty. Then the sandstorm hit, but this wasn't a natural storm. The colonists had modified their mining equipment to control Mars' loose soil. Millions of tons of red sand filled the air, guided by hidden machines. The storm tore at the Concordat ship's sensors, blocked their views, and clogged their engines. By the time the storm cleared, the colony's real defense forces had positioned themselves perfectly. Another Concordat attack failed. In her lab on Europa, Amanda Morgan received an exciting transmission from their alien allies. More species were joining the resistance. The Nexari, led by Rix, had begun sabotaging Concordat supply lines. 2 other species, the Kilari and the Vex, were secretly sharing military intelligence with Earth. Look at this, Amanda told her team, showing them a decoded message. The Concordat is facing protests on 3 of their subject worlds. They've never dealt with this before. Species working together against them. She sent a message to Peter. It's spreading. The desire for freedom is contagious. Commander Susan Wright had turned Earth's orbital defense platforms into more than just weapons. They were now communication hubs, broadcasting messages to every Concordat ship in range. Not threats or demands, but something more powerful, the truth. To all Concordat forces, the messages said, "We know you were told we're savages who must be controlled. Look at our cities, our art, our music. Look at how we fight, not for conquest, but for freedom. Not just for ourselves, but for all species. You don't have to be slaves to the Concordat. You can choose to be free." The messages worked better than anyone expected. 3 Concordat ships surrendered in the first week. Their crews asked for asylum, saying they'd never known there was another way to live. Peter's diplomatic skills found a new use, coordinating between Earth's forces and their growing number of alien allies. Each species that joined them brought new knowledge, new technologies, new ways of fighting. The Nexari taught humans how to detect weaknesses in Concordat ship designs. The Kilari shared secrets about Concordat communication systems. The Vex showed them how to disrupt the aliens' perfect formations. But the biggest advantage came from something uniquely human: the ability to combine all these different ideas in new ways. Where the Concordat sought everything in terms of order and control, humans saw possibilities. Admiral Hayes put these lessons to use in what became known as the Battle of the Asteroid Belt. When a massive Concordat fleet tried to push through to Mars, they found themselves facing a trap 3 months in the making. Human ships darted between asteroids, using maneuvers no proper Concordat commander would ever try. Nexari saboteurs had planted false signals that made asteroids look like ships and ships look like asteroids. Kilari tech let Earth's forces see through the chaos while the Concordat ships fired at shadows. Status report, Linda called out as the battle raged. 8 Concordat ships disabled. Her tactical officer replied. 3 more retreating. No losses on our side. Linda allowed herself a small smile. The mighty Concordat was learning a lesson that Earth's history had taught again and again. Superior numbers and technology didn't always win wars. Sometimes, the side fighting for something bigger than themselves found strength their enemies couldn't match. Back on Earth, cities adapted to life under siege. Every attack that failed to break humanity's spirit only made them more determined. People planted rooftop gardens, recycled everything, and turned old factories into shipyards. Children played games about outsmarting Concordat ships. In Geneva, Peter received a surprising request. A fourth species, the Centauri, wanted to openly rebel against the Concordat. They asked for Earth's help. "It's risky," he told the council. "The Concordat will respond with everything they have." "Good," Admiral Hayes said. "Let them spread their forces thin. Let them face resistance everywhere they turn." "It's more than that," Amanda added, joining the meeting through a holographic display from Europa. "Every species that stands up weakens the Concordat's control over the others. Fear keeps their empire together. Fear and the belief that resistance is impossible. We've shown that's a lie." The Centauri rebellion began 3 days later. The Concordat, already struggling to contain humanity, now faced open resistance on multiple fronts. Their perfect order was crumbling. In response, they launched their biggest attack yet. 100 ships, their largest fleet ever assembled, prepared to strike Earth directly. But humanity wasn't the same enemy they'd faced months ago. Earth ships now carried Nexari stealth systems and Kilari shields. Mars colonies had adapted Vex mining techniques to build underground cities the Concordat couldn't touch. Europa Base had become a command center for coordinating resistance across multiple star systems. Most importantly, humans had shown the galaxy something it hadn't seen in 12,000 years: hope. As Peter watched the massive fleet approach Earth, he thought about how much had changed. Humanity hadn't just refused to kneel. They'd stood up and reached out their hands to help others stand too. The coming battle would be the biggest test yet. But win or lose, they'd already changed the galaxy forever. The species that never kneeled had taught others to stand again. And that was something even the mighty Concordat couldn't undo. The final battle began where everything had started, above Earth. But this time, humanity wasn't alone. Ships from 4 rebel species fought alongside Earth's fleet. The Nexari, the Kilari, the Vex, and the Centauri had openly declared their independence from the Concordat. Admiral Linda Hayes stood on her flagship's bridge, watching the tactical display. The combined rebel fleet looked tiny compared to the massive Concordat armada approaching Earth. "All ships, battle formations," she ordered. "Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for." Beside her, Peter Morgan waited tensely. After months of fighting, diplomatic work, and building alliances, everything came down to this moment. "They're launching their first wave," Linda's tactical officer reported. "Let's show them what free species can do," Linda smiled. "Execute Operation Phoenix." The plan had been Amanda Morgan's idea. Through her research on Europa Base, she had discovered that the Concordat's greatest strength, their perfect unity and order, could become their greatest weakness. The rebel fleet scattered, appearing to break formation under the Concordat's attack. The massive alien ships pressed forward, following their programmed tactics for pursuing a retreating enemy. That's when the trap was sprung. Hidden in Earth's debris field, wreckage from earlier battles, hundreds of small fighters launched simultaneously. These weren't normal ships. They were piloted by mixed crews, humans working alongside Nexari engineers, Kilari weapons experts with Vex navigators. They flew in ways the Concordat's tactical computers couldn't predict. "Look at that," Peter breathed, watching the battle unfold. They've never seen anything like this. The small ships darted between the massive Concordat vessels, too quick to track, too unpredictable to counter. They carried weapons designed by combining technology from 5 different species. Where the Concordat expected order, they found chaos. Where they expected submission, they found defiance. On Mars, Captain Ryan Ellis led a different kind of attack. While the space battle raged above, His mixed force of humans and rebel aliens struck at the Concordat's ground bases. They used the tunnel networks that humans had been digging for months, not just for mining anymore, but as part of a planet-wide underground city. All units, advance, Ryan ordered. His troops moved forward, human determination combined with alien knowledge creating an unstoppable force. The Concordat soldiers, used to fighting enemies who followed predictable patterns, found themselves facing opponents who seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Every tunnel could hide an ambush. Every corner could conceal a surprise. Commander Susan Wright coordinated Earth's orbital defenses, but now they did more than just protect the planet. The defense platforms broadcast a message to every ship in the system, not in human languages, but in the native tongues of all 15 Concordat subject species. Look at what's happening, the message said. Look at free species fighting together. You don't have to kneel anymore. You don't have to be afraid. Stand with us. Stand up. More Concordat ships began to break formation. Some turned their weapons on their former masters. Others simply stopped fighting, their crews choosing to watch as history changed around them. In her lab on Europa, Amanda coordinated with alien scientists, combining their knowledge in ways the Concordat had never allowed. Together, they found ways to disrupt the aliens' command and control systems, turning their perfect order into confusion. Their whole empire is built on control, she told her team. Take that away, and what's left? Just scared beings who've forgotten how to think for themselves. She sent a final message to Peter. The Concordat's real weakness isn't in their ships or their weapons. It's in their minds. They've forgotten that real strength comes from choosing to stand together, not being forced to kneel apart. On the flagship's bridge, Peter watched as the battle turned. The Concordat's perfect formations broke apart. Their programmed tactics failed against enemies who refused to follow the rules of conventional warfare. Linda's voice rang out. All ships, push forward. Don't let them regroup. The rebel fleet struck from all directions. Human ships fought alongside alien vessels, covering each other's weaknesses, enhancing each other's strengths. They fought like they trained, together, as equals, each bringing their own skills to the battle. The Concordat's command ship, a massive vessel at the heart of their fleet, found itself surrounded. Its shields failed under combined fire from 5 different species' weapons. Its engines died, crippled by technology its designers had never imagined. They're sending a message, Peter's communication officer reported. They want to surrender. The bridge fell silent. After 12,000 years, after countless species forced to kneel, after so many civilizations stripped of their independence, the mighty Concordat was asking for mercy. Peter stepped forward. Tell them we accept their surrender, on behalf of all free species. The aftermath of the battle brought changes no one had expected. The Concordat's empire, built on fear and submission, collapsed in days. As news of their defeat spread, more species rose up, reclaiming their independence. A month later, Peter stood in the Great Hall of the newly formed Alliance of Free Species. Representatives from 20 different civilizations sat together as equals. Some had been enemies under the Concordat. Now they worked together, learning from each other, growing stronger through cooperation rather than conquest. Amanda's research had shown why the Concordat failed. They saw diversity as a weakness to be controlled. But humanity had proved that difference could be strength. Each species brought unique abilities, unique perspectives, unique ways of solving problems. The galaxy's changing, Peter told the assembly. We're all part of something new. Not an empire built on fear, but an alliance built on choice. Not species forced to kneel, but people choosing to stand together. He looked around the room, at humans sitting beside their former enemies, at former slaves building new lives as free beings, at the endless possibilities that opened up when people were allowed to choose their own path. We fought for more than just our own freedom, he continued. We fought to show that another way was possible. That strength doesn't come from forcing others to kneel, but from helping them stand. Years later, human children would learn about the war that changed the galaxy. They would learn about courage and determination, about standing up against impossible odds. But mostly, they would learn about cooperation, how different species working together proved stronger than any empire built on fear. The story would be told on 1,000 worlds, in 1,000 languages, but it always ended the same way, with the species that never kneeled helping others find the strength to stand. And in the Great Hall of the Alliance, where representatives of free species met as equals, one message was carved in every known language. True strength isn't measured by how many kneel before you, but by how many stand beside you. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and it would never forget.